Welcome into episode 306 of the Skate Podcast. I'm Brian DeFelice, joined by Bridget Prue and Scott McLaughlin. 3 games into the Bruins Leafs playoff series. 3 great games. I think game 3 in Toronto was the most physical game of the series. I think the teams combined for over 100 hits before the second period even concluded. A lot of storylines to take away from this game, but it's always very fun getting a win north of the border, especially when you can silence that crowd in Toronto. Bridget and Scott, how are you feeling after that game? Are you feeling more confident with things, or just one day at a time here?
Hey, you got to feel more confident. That's nature of the playoffs. You're up in the series again. On the hits, listen, that was a very physical game. Someone's got to do something about this hit counter up in Toronto because that was a really physical game. It was not a 137 combined hits game. I'm sorry,
No,
guys, there were not more than 2 hits per minute. And I remember the Bruins' highest total in the regular season was also a game in Toronto where there were 101 combined hits, and I was like, there were maybe half of that. Like, I think they're really jacking up the totals up there.
Somebody's definition up there is a little different than the rest of the league.
Is that why Toronto's a top 3 team in the NHL in hits this year?
I definitely think that's part. Like, Toronto is a physical team. I think you see that in the series. But I do think that's a part of it. I do think it certainly seems like Toronto's a place that overestimates the actual number of hits.
Yeah, I thought it was weird when I think Jake DeBrusk had like 8 hits yesterday. I was like, did he?
He may have. He was playing very, very physical for his standards. But yeah, your points.
He's had a great series so far.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say your point's valid about the potential upticks, but either way, he played really, really strong. So why don't we go into the opening shifts right away, Bridget? Why don't we start with you?
Okay, so mine has to do with some of the lineup changes, which here we are after game 3, and we saw the typical Montgomery shuffling of the lines. The only line he didn't change was the 4th line. Because that line had been pretty effective, and he rotated pretty much everything else around. He took Erzlich out of the lineup. He put Lohrei in. Peak's out with an injury week to week, which means we're probably not going to see him till at least the second round, if that's what happens. And Weatherspoon goes in for the first time in the playoffs. So Lohrei and Weatherspoon both made their debuts, and Van Riemsdyk also came in for Lauko. And I want to talk about some of the highs and lows of those guys in the game, but I'll just start off first with the fact that Brian finally got to see his D pairs that he wanted. Besides, he wanted Weatherspoon Peak, but obviously that's not possible. So he got the Lohrei McAvoy pair and the Lindholm Carlo pair that he wanted. And we're not quite there yet because we haven't got to you guys opening shifts, but I know there's a lot to say about how the D pairs looked, how Lohrei looked, and Van Riemsdyk couldn't buy a goal, but came so close.
Yeah, my opening shift is about Brad Marchand just taking over. Game 2, I think we saw Austin Matthews step up and take over. You kind of thought, all right, well, if anyone on the Bruins is going to do that, you look at David Pastrnak first, right? Their best player. Said it was Brad Marchand, and it was just a vintage Marchand performance in every way. Dominant at 5-on-5, led the team in shots on goal, led all forwards in penalty. He played over 4 minutes on the penalty kill. PK goes 5 for 5. Scores twice, including the game-winning goal. Sets up DeBrusk's goal on the power play. Really just did it all. Gets under the Leafs' skin. We'll get into Sheldon Keefe's comments after the game, but the Maple Leafs coach is whining about Marchand getting calls or not getting called for trips. Going out with Bertuzzi all over the ice all game long. So really, like, every element of just kind of a vintage Marchand performance, and in a game where you needed it. You needed someone to step up, and the captain does it.
Absolutely. Can't wait to dive more into that. For my opening shift, I just thought that was probably the most satisfying playoff win I can remember, at least dating back to the Cup run in 2019. There's something about playing Toronto, where you're the center of the hockey universe, and as great as it is to win a game at TD Garden in game one, and not to take away anything from satisfying wins in recent years against, Florida or Carolina or the Islanders, despite how those series ended, you have to go back for me pre-bubble to find a playoff game where you felt so, I don't know, if not vindicated, but just so like justice was served, like a little bit. Players you can't stand on Toronto, like Domi and others, kind of, they've been trying to face wash, Marchand all series, get in Swayman's face between periods and, shoulder him. And obviously Brad Marchand's villain number one up in Toronto. And Scott, to your opening shift, like just the way the Bruins won the game, the players that stepped up in doing so. And I just, that clock wound down last night. And that's the thing I thought of first thing, was just what a satisfying playoff win. And, the most satisfying I can recall since, like I said, probably around 2019 or so.
Yeah, it was a complete game. We touched on the physicality. We touched on Marchand being, villain number one. Swayman, excellent in goal again. And obviously we'll get into that. He's now 5-0 against the Leafs this season. And, even for a pro rotation person like me, like, that is hard to ignore. I thought just about everyone played well. I have some beefs with, I guess, if we're going to call the top line, with Pastrnak and Zacha. He's still kind of waiting. Not kind of. You are still waiting for them to get going 5-on-5. It did not happen in this game. But just about everything else, worked. It just about everyone else showed up, brought the physicality. Your power play, you win. You dominate the special teams battle again, and that is turning into a huge storyline in this series. Bruins end up 2 for 3 on the power play. And, one of those is the empty netter at the end, right? The Leafs take a late penalty, and then as soon as they get possession, they pull their goalie. So it's 5-on-5, but technically it's still a power play goal when the Bruins score. So even if you just want to say 1 for 2, and then compare that to the Leafs going 0 for 5. And 0 for 5 with only 4 shots on goal. Swayman had that one sequence where he made like 3 saves in quick succession. Outside of that, the Leafs only landed 1 other shot on goal on the power play. So just tremendous killing. And that really feels like something that someone calling. Someone, are we doing a call-in show now?
Yeah, well, I did put up a bunch of polls, but I did not set up a number for people to just start calling Scott. So
should have just
I
brought
can
them
right
on.
now if you want. I can tweet out your number and see if people call in.
That was me, Scott. I was just trying to derail you. I'm sorry.
I actually don't even know who that was, so I should just put them on and be like, "Hey, we're recording a Bruins podcast."
That's okay. I was already interrupted by Melvin, so. Did you have anything else to say, or did you forget?
No, I think I was pretty wrapped up.
Yeah, and I think we can't go that far without talking about the Sheldon Keefe comments about Marchand, because we've hit on Marchand having a great game. We've also hit on the Leafs having trouble on their power play, besides that one flurry, which, by the way, I thought they were going to score on, but Swayman was amazing. But after the game, Sheldon Keefe saying that he starts out by saying Marchand's a world-class player, but then he's like, at his skills, but also basically at being a rat. He said at gamesmanship and whatnot. So it came across as very complainy. Like it came across as, also, he said he's really good at drawing penalties. He didn't draw a single penalty, and Marchand always is the one that ends up in the box. His whole career, that's been what it's been like. It's like, have you not been watching the career of Brad Marchand at any point in time? And I saw him get a lot of heat for it on social media after, because it just didn't make a whole lot of sense to Bruins fans, for sure. I think to just like impartial fans as well. Maybe he should have gotten called for the Bertuzzi like leg sweep or whatever, but Bertuzzi was doing stuff too, so you would have had to take both of them. And yeah, he was playing Brad Marchand playoff hockey, which is a little bit pesty and and all sorts of stuff like chirping and whatnot, but I think that's what makes him effective. He plays with a lot of emotion, and that's when he scores, and that's when he gets under people's skin. And probably Brian Wyatt was so satisfying was because you see him finally get to that level where we hadn't quite seen it yet this playoffs. You see really satisfying goaltending for Boston. You see secondary scoring with Trent Frederick. There was a lot of things to like, and that's probably why it felt like such a satisfying win, because it was a close game. And I don't know if you guys feel this way, but I didn't think the Leafs played poorly. I mean, the Bruins outplayed them, but I didn't think the Leafs played poorly.
Oh, I thought defensively, I thought Toronto had even strength. I thought they played fine. Like this is not the Toronto team of old where you have Jake Gardiner and insert Maple Leafs defenseman here who just turns the puck. Like they have like Joel Edmondson likes to block shots. Simone Benoit is a big body, tries to get a stick in there. Obviously, you still have Morgan Riley, but Jake McCabe is a defenseman who likes, he tries to play the right way. Like the Toronto, and again, this is what I was talking about earlier before when we broke down the series before game one. Like it's a different Toronto team. So it's not that the Bruins can't have success against them in the playoffs and yet again beat Toronto in a playoff series. It's just going to have to be with a different formula. But yes,
can I ask you this question? Mm-hmm. Is the Bruins, because that seemed like not that the Bruins were perfect either, but like that was close to the Bruins A game. Would you agree? Or do you think that
it's a good question, Bridget, and I think as a team, I thought that like over 60 minutes, you're going to have some hiccups, right? It's just going to happen when you have two good teams out there. I think as a team,
first period, there was like a stretch of like 12 minutes where they didn't have a shot. So
Wotherspoon had a couple of hiccups. Lohrei had a couple of hiccups. Not enough for me to take either of them out of the lineup, but and nobody was, not one player was perfect. But as a team, to your question, was it an A game? It's close. I think for them to have an A game, like Pastrnak needs to be clicking as well, and Zacha, like to Scott's point a minute ago. So besides that line, so I can't give the team a complete A game because that line wasn't going 5-on-5. But if they are, that's about all that was missing, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was gonna say it can't really be an A game when Pastrnak is, quite frankly, like almost invisible most of the game. That line was really quiet, and they were on the ice for both of the Maple Leafs goals. Pastrnak had just one shot on goal. He had 8 other attempts that were either blocked or missed. But to me, that's kind of like, it's one thing if he misses because he's trying to like snipe a corner or whatever. But the blocks in particular really bother me. Like there were a couple times where I actually thought he had a passing outlet and he forced the shot into traffic and it got blocked. So, it's a great sign for the Bruins that they're up 2-1 and that line still hasn't really gotten going 5-on-5. But until that line gets going, I'd say we still haven't seen the Bruins A game, which again is like actually encouraging that you're up 2-1 without really having that game yet.
Well, and think about it though, like Montgomery's trying to get them there. That was one of the things he did, was change that line. He put DeBrusk with them, which was not a common partner this season. Like DeBrusk, when it was, it's mostly been Zacha and Pasta without DeBrusk. DeBrusk has mostly found himself on Marchand's line towards the end of the season. So they split them up. Because DeBrusk's playing so well, the thought has to be, all right, he's doing everything right. He's winning pucks. Like maybe he wins one, pops it out to Pasta, and Pasta gets going. And that, I assume that was the idea. So that line he did try to spark with a shakeup.
And it wasn't a 1-for-1 switch where they put Heinen with Marchand and Coyle. They actually brought Geekie up with Coyle and Marchand. Ironically, the Marchand game-winning goal was a pass from Heinen. I'm trying to remember if that was amidst a line change. I think it was, because Frederick was also out there. So curious to see if they stick with those lines in game 4. My guess is they probably would. I thought they looked I thought they looked good. To your point, DeBrusque's playing well, and so maybe send him down because things are getting stale with Heinen and Zaka and Pasternak. And I thought putting Marchand with two big bodies in Geeky and Coyle, that helps you when puck battles down low. It helps you keep the puck down low. And for a smaller guy, Marchand is also really, really good at protecting the puck. So I thought the lines looked good. I'm curious to see if that sticks. And just one last point on, well, maybe not one last point. I'm sure we'll keep talking about him. But regarding Marchand, one of the other reasons why last night was such a satisfying win, and we talked about it, and I mentioned it online before the game yesterday, but dating back to the beginning of February, in 35 games, Marchand only had 5 goals. So while he compiled some assists, I think he had like 18 assists for 23 points in that time. This Bruins team on paper, they don't have enough goal scoring talent for Brad Marchand to be scoring at that low clip. And so it was unanimous amongst Bruins fans, the Bruins themselves, like even Brad Marchand. Everybody knows he had to get going on the score sheet, the goal score sheet. And not only did he do that last night, but for the first time in what seems like forever, it was, to steal what Scott said earlier, it was vintage Marchand. Like, to see 20,000 people at the Air Canada Center standing up, wanting to throw their towels on the ice because Marchand, quote unquote, trips Bertuzzi, which let's call it the way that it is. Bertuzzi also knew the situation and probably went down a little easily, but you see Frederick go down and score, and you're like, oh, this place is. They are so red faced right now, and it's just like, oh, here it comes. Here's the pot stirring.
Everybody got caught watching Marchand, and Frederick just kind of snuck in,
and you could just see like he's making an impact in every single way. Now he's into the series, and then after he scored his goal to make it 3-2, which again, talk about leadership. Toronto ties the game in the third period. Shit goal off a leg, whatever. But they tie the game. The crowd's buzzing. Here comes Marchand a minute later, and just silences the crowd.
28 seconds.
Yeah.
20. Well, it seemed like a minute because I was holding my breath after that Lohrei turnover. But but he comes right back down and silences the crowd. And after that, now you start seeing him gaining offensive zone entries, and now he's pulling up with confidence, and now he's making plays, and it's just like, it's starting to click. He's starting to get going now.
And by the way, on his empty net goal, he got that because he flipped over Bertuzzi, who was on top of him. He just like flipped him off and he scored. And it was him and Bertuzzi were going at it all night. I mean, he was asked about it after the game because the guys are actually friends now that they played together. And Marchand said we have similar interests and like they're actually friends, but it's funny to watch them play. It's very entertaining to watch those two guys go against each other. I want to bring up a quote from Marchand after the game because I guess there was observations in morning skate that Marchand was fired up, and then you see it transfer into game 3. And he said, I woke up with that gratitude that it's a gift to play in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So I think that maybe he had it was a mental realization that he had, like, you're here, you got to make the most of it. And he said, I thought we elevated to another level and that we didn't have the other games.
Yeah, and he led the way. Montgomery after the game said, I can't say enough good things about the way our captain led us tonight. Or I can't say enough about the leadership by our captain tonight. Charlie Coyle went on and on about, how did Marchand set the tone? In every way possible, I think. And he talked about, his play, his scoring, but battling, not backing down, his leadership on the bench, the way he talks and keeps us engaged in that given situation, whatever it calls for. So he said, he added later, it goes beyond his play on the ice, which was exceptional tonight. It's on the bench, in the locker room, and his all-around leadership and character. This is, obviously things only get remembered based on the final result of a series, but this could be like the kind of signature win that you add to an already impressive resume from Marchand that just really sticks out as like a game where he took over. And, I thought Geeky on that line with him and Coyle, I thought that worked well. That line was really good. Now, when Marchand's playing like that, like you could probably put me at right wing on that line, and the line would still look pretty good.
Great net front presence.
But no, I did like the line changes for the most part, and I actually would keep DeBrusk, Zacha, Pastrnak together because at least DeBrusk is playing well. He scores again, so he's got 5 points in 3 games.
Leads the team.
Yeah. Or is Marchand just ahead of him now?
I thought that DeBrusk had more, but let me double
I think
check.
Marchand's got 6 now, so I think he pulled 1 ahead of him.
He should get an assist on that Bertuzzi takedown for the Frederick goal too.
But because like with that top line, I think it's just Pastrnak and Zacha have to get going. Like at this point, I don't really think it's like a matter of, oh, you got to find the right fit on the left wing. It's like, no, like those guys just have to get going. And I thought the new look third line, I thought Van Riemsdyk played well coming in. Not that he set the world on fire or anything, but I don't think he played himself out of the lineup. I thought moving Frederick to center, I think forced him to get more involved. He had been too quiet the first 2 games, and you can't hide at center. You can't just drift out of the action. So I just felt like you saw him around the puck more, with the puck more. Mm-hmm. He scores that goal, which is obviously a soft one, but
yeah,
hey, he put the shot on net, so give him credit.
It was a good hard shot too.
Yeah,
right. Like, and that's a good point, Scott. Sometimes it's Trent Frederick is one of those players where he needs to be involved in the game, in the fight, and to your point, when you jump into the fire every shift by playing center, your responsibilities skyrocket, your awareness has to skyrocket. So I just think, I thought he played great. He was using his size.
He's got a little bit of that Marchand in him, where he's a pest after whistles, and
he has that Marchand in him where when he flips a switch, he flips a switch. Like, it's very easy to tell when he's engaged and when he's not. And it's not that Marchand's not ever not engaged, but you can maybe a better way to word it is you can tell when he's going to have an impact on a game because you can just see it coming. And the whole Marchand stuff, it was alarming on one hand and not alarming on the other because his skating never seemed to deviate. He wasn't not keeping up with the plays. He looked like he was skating this whole time, but the puck on his stick, he didn't have confidence. Now he's got that going. And I thought Jake DeBrusk, I think that may have been one of the best games I've ever seen him play as a Bruin. And I mean, I'm talking about everything. Just he's scoring goals by going to the net. He's finishing his checks. He's very aware of where he is on the ice. He saved a goal with Yarncroc in the slot, lifting his stick on the power play. Just and it was one of those games where it's like, this is why at times I get hard on him because I know what the kid's capable of. I think everybody is. That said, he's choosing the right time of year to do it. I'd rather him do it in April than December, I suppose, if I had to choose one or the other. And then my last comment on, I guess, just on a smorgasbord of forward analysis right now. One optimistic viewpoint I have on David Pastrnak is that he was quiet in the first half of round 1 last year and then ramped it up the second half of the series. So it's, we could probably dissect why he is quiet right now. He's got to simplify his game a bit, but if there's a way to look at it positively, this is how he started last year's round 1, and we all know he turned it on as the series went along.
Yeah, and like I definitely don't think it's a case of like not being engaged. I think we've seen him be physically engaged this whole series, and like I thought he was again on Wednesday in Game 3. So, it's not like he's just out there in cruise control, just drifting around. I think for whether it's puck's not finding him, line mate's not finding him. Again, it's him not quite being able to find his shot, or just not make him, the right decision with the puck. Like, I don't think it's really a lack of effort. It's just execution isn't there right now. So I would be more worried if it was like, wow, you don't even notice Pasternak and he's just, kind of going through the motions. Like that would be more concerning to me. And I don't really think that's what I'm seeing.
No, and there was a few passes that made it to him that just weren't perfect, so he didn't get the shot off that he wanted. I don't know. That, by the way, did you think that ice yesterday looked awful?
Yeah, it was a little choppy. Like I'm trying to think, but yeah, there was some hopping pucks.
There was a lot. I felt like it was just bouncing constantly, and then I saw Wotherspoon just randomly tripped and fell over a divot or something. And I don't know, the ice looked bad. We were talking about this the other day, like if Boston's ice is any worse than other rinks, and especially in the springtime. And it seemed to me that Toronto ice was bad. I don't know. Maybe we should ask one of the guys next time we see him, but what they thought of the ice there. But just out of curiosity, really, honestly, not as like an excuse for any sort of, bounces that didn't work out, but I'm just curious whether or not it was kind of messed up. I don't know how warm it was there yesterday, but who knows? I noticed a few times I was like, okay, the puck doesn't usually do that there. But yeah, I think that the puck didn't find him in the right places to have a shooting lane a lot of the times. I was watching, so obviously we watched Bruins post game. Then I went over and I watched the NHL Network after wrap up of all the games, and they were talking about a few shots that Pasternak had where it was like any other guy doesn't get that shot off. Like there were times where he was trying to make the most of a tough pass. So it's not all on him, obviously, but you do have to free him up and get him in those lanes where he's got a better lane to the net to shoot. I guess him and Zacha both haven't been able to get to super high danger areas to score, except for that Zacha breakaway that he had shorthanded the other day, which, by the way, how many breakaways were they going to go on and not score? And how many posts were they going to hit with an empty net? That was insane. They had to post 3 times with an empty net before Marchand eventually scored into it.
Yeah. And I think with Pasternak, it's more glaring yesterday that it's, to Scott's earlier point, it's not that he's not trying. It's not a lack of effort. I think it's a lack of maybe confidence right now. Maybe, but you noticed it yesterday because the Bruins only had one full 2-minute power play, and it was right at the beginning of the game with a delay of game. So, by the way, if you listen to Toronto fans, the refs jobbed the Leafs. But yeah, that's a different conversation.
Not even close.
I mean, Toronto gets 5 power plays. The Bruins get 1, and then they get a half of one later in the game when Bertuzzi, negates the Toronto power play they were already on. And then at the end of the game, the Tavares on McAvoy.
Oh yeah, they were so pissed about that one. They were very pissed about that one.
Bridget, Toronto Maple Leaf players, they don't go down easy at all. They don't dive. It's not like the whole league doesn't do it at all. It's just the Bruins, But in any event, I think what I was saying about Pasternak is I think the 5-on-5 production or lack of scoring chances, he didn't have any power play time. And sometimes when the Bruins
he's gotten less power play time.
Well, yeah. Yes, because the Bruins split up the 2 units. But I meant to say the Bruins team didn't have a lot of power play time yesterday. So maybe it's kind of why he didn't seem so dangerous at times, and there was more 5-on-5 play, and he's fighting it a bit at even strength. So yeah, I mean, Pasternak and Zacha, if the Bruins continue to play for the most part like they did yesterday as a team, and Zacha and Pasternak are going at even strength, I think that's the A game that the Bruins are looking for. Is that sustainable every game in the postseason? Probably not. But to what Scott said, it's a good sign that despite those 2 guys quiet right now, 5-on-5, the team's still performing. And Brad Marchand coming back to life, that's a huge factor. If Zacha and Pasternak are struggling and Marchand is continuing to have that goal slump and not looking like himself, Toronto wins that game last night. But again, when one guy has to step up, and that's what Marchand did last night. They needed the most.
A couple other forward notes from me, and then maybe we can switch over to the defense and goaltending. But on Frederick, should also note he didn't get an assist on Marchand's winning goal, but he's the one in on the forecheck who frees that puck up for Heinen. So, just another mark on the positive on his night. And also on Marchand, we talked about that line. They still saw a lot of Austin Matthews in that game. Like that was a matchup the Bruins wanted on home ice. And the Leafs didn't try to get that matchup, and it wasn't a strict matchup, but they also didn't seem to make a ton of effort to avoid it. So they still ended up with a lot of time against each other. And Marchand and Matthews were on the ice together at 5-on-5 for 5:46 last night. Shot attempts were 14-3 Bruins. Shots on goal 8-1 Bruins during those minutes. Just like an absolutely decisive win after obviously a game in game 2 where it seemed like Matthews could do whatever he wanted and Bruins had no answers, and you're like, oh my God, can they possibly contain him? Well, one game later, they not only contained him, they really just hemmed him in his own zone for most of the night and totally won that matchup.
Yeah, basically. And that was something that coach talked about after game 2 was like, well, you can't let them play in the offensive end of the ice or it's going to bite you. So you got to just do those simple things to keep them in the other end. And even if you're not getting the most high quality chances at that point in time, you just got to keep possession away from them and keep them from transitioning. I think the Bruins did have some more struggles in transition again in game 3, which is something can definitely work on for game 4. My last thought about the forward group, which by the way, I guess I have a few little ones. Pat Maroon, what did we think of Pat Maroon?
I mean, I don't know what more he could do given the recent surgery and the lack of playing time he's had in the role they're asking of him. I think he almost had a goal against Samsonov, but again, no one's looking for him to be a goal scorer. Maybe he can chip in like everybody else is expected to here and there, but just to quickly answer your question, Bridget, I've actually been quite impressed with how quickly he has gotten up to speed, coming off of back surgery and heading right into the playoffs, essentially. And has he dropped the gloves yet? No. Does he need to? No. He's there in case you have to, not to initiate. And obviously, Max Domi, who, by the way, I thought of a great.
He did chase him down when Domi hit Swayman.
He did, but I thought of a great chirp last night. If anybody in the media asks Marchand at some point about Domi as a player, or like what he thinks of Domi in this series, something like that, like Marchand could like say something along the lines of, I mean, yeah, he's so many teams around the league know how good he is. He's played for so many teams. Just like a kind like a way to like compliment him backhand compliment.
A neg. Give him a neg.
Something like that could be put on a platter for Marchand. Yeah. I mean, so many teams in the league know what he can do. He's played for so many teams. But that's why Maroon's there, right? And so Scott, I don't know if you had anything else to add on that.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's definitely times where you notice that he's slow. Like he just is. He's never been particularly fleet of foot. Now he's 35 and he's coming off back surgery. So yeah, there's going to be times where he can't quite catch a defenseman or get in on the forecheck on time. But I still think he's mostly been a plus this series, and that line has been good. And they've been an asset in the series, and he's part of it. So, like you do see it on Twitter, like people are like, Maroon can't skate. Like, why is he out there or whatever? And it's like, all right, but when he is in like behind the net and deep in the offensive zone, he still holds on to pucks. He's still physical. He still hits people. He does get pucks up when they come up the wall to him in the defensive zone, which we know how important that is in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. So, like, he's doing all that stuff. And to your point, Brian, like, I don't know how much more you expect or could it possibly ask from him. As long as that line remains a positive, which it's definitely been in the series, he's staying in my lineup.
I'm glad you brought up those points, because that's what I've noticed. Specifically to your question, Bridget, Scott just answered it perfectly. Like, he's never been a fast skater. He's never going to be one. So
His nickname is Big Rig.
Right. So
they don't tend to win many races with sports cars, last I checked. But
so when I'm watching him, I'm not watching him for speed. I'm watching the little things. Is he getting the puck out of his zone? Yes. Is he holding on to pucks and using his size? All those things Scott just said. So yeah, I think it's, like I said, it's been impressive. To go from zero to 100 right into the NHL playoffs is not an easy thing at all. Back surgery.
Yeah, I don't.
Or maybe like 0 to 55. What does a Big Rig get up to?
On the highway? Ooh, it takes a while, but he might.
He's like when you get stuck behind an excavator, a construction vehicle on a main road when they're moving from site to site.
Oh God. All right, so my last point about forwards, which also will transition to defense. I put up a few polls last night. I was on the Skate Pod Twitter. So I just wanted to gauge where people thought certain things. And this one was, should Lohrei and JVR stay in for game 4? And I had 4 different answers. I said yes, keep both, no, both out, only Lohrei or only JVR. And a majority of people, 58%, said yes, both should stay in. And there was even more support for JVR. So yeah, I want to get your opinion. Do you think, and I want to start with JVR and then we'll go to Lohrei and then we'll go to defense. So Van Riemsdyk, did he do what he needed to do? And my main thing for him and why I think he should stay in is that even though he didn't finish last night, he gets a breakaway or Lauko gets a breakaway. Who's more likely to score?
Well, JVR, but also
who's more likely to score in front of the net?
JVR.
And you go through all these scoring like situations, and you're like, I'd rather have him out there for those.
Well, and here's the biggest reason why I would keep him in the lineup, because those hypotheticals you just mentioned wouldn't happen for Lauko. I don't think you see Jacob Lauko get sprung for 2 breakaways in a game. I don't think you see Lauko so. Even the ability to put himself in those situations, JVR has over Lauko, and even when Lauko was in the lineup, it was no secret. I mean, we've been saying all along, Lauko is not a third line player. I didn't think he was playing poorly. He was just bringing something that should be on most fourth lines, and the Bruins needed more scoring threats up and down the lineup, and so I would keep him in.
Yeah, he had a couple chances right around the net. Like, I know he had one deflection that went just high, and then I don't know if it was Heinen or like someone had a put back chance. He had a rebound chance, and yeah, at some point he's got to bury 1 or 2 of those. Like, obviously, goal scoring at times for Van Riemsdyk has been a problem this year too. He's had a lot of looks around the net front and hasn't been able to bury them. So.
Still more likely than Lauko to do it.
Right. He's more likely to bury them, and to Brian's point, he's more likely to get them in the first place. So I'll keep the guy as long as he's keeping up and you don't notice him like being way behind the play.
Which you didn't.
No, I'll keep him in the lineup because all it takes in the playoffs, like to win a game or swing a series, is he just buries 1 of those. And so I'll keep him in and take my chances on that. And yeah, Lauko brings some things I like too, with his speed and the way he gets in on the forecheck, physicality. He drew 2 penalties in the first 2 games. Like, let's not ignore that. So it's not like a completely lopsided decision. I think it's close, but I just think for a Bruins team that was looking for more offense, and specifically on a third line role, JVR is going to be more likely to deliver than Lauko. So I would keep him in.
Only 18% of people thought that he should be out. So it kind of tells you what people thought of the potential there. And then the other side is Lohrei. So there were actually more people that thought Lohrei should come out than JVR. Though, like I said, majority of people think both should stay in. Did Lohrei provide enough positive over what Matt Grzelcyk was struggling with, despite the mistakes that we saw him make and the obvious times where it's like, okay, that's a rookie pinch right there. That is not the right move to make in this situation. Like, do the pros outweigh the cons for him over Grzelcyk?
Okay, so thinking back on the game, I believe he was called for two penalties, and the cross check in front of the net I thought was an incredibly weak call. Happens all game, every game in the playoffs. The hook at the end of the game, towards the end of the game, again, it's like it's a weak call, but it's a call that like you see them make sometimes. So I'm not gonna criticize him too much because like though he's engaged. He's like the cross check was again like he's defending the front of the net.
And
Where
it's Bertuzzi, and he does go down a little bit.
Yeah.
And
So those penalties are not reasons why I would take him out. There were two plays over the course of the game where he got away with two mistakes, and I would keep him in the lineup, show him the film, and allow him to learn. And those mistakes were, you alluded to it, Bridget. There was a pinch earlier on in the game that you got to know who you're on the ice against, and he pinched, and Austin Matthews takes the puck down the right wing boards on the 2-on-1. McAvoy takes the passer and gives Swayman the shot, and Matthews hit the post, so got away with that one. And then obviously the turnover to Max Domi right before the game-winning goal by Marchand, where if Domi just wrapped it around a second earlier, it's a goal. I don't know why he waited the way he did. So two mistakes that could have been costly that weren't. So the question is, do you just show him the film and let him learn from it? I would, and I would keep him in the lineup, but I don't want to gloss over those because they could have been costly. But
yeah,
I net positive, I think, just because they didn't cost them. So
the Matthews shot that got off because the pinch was the one that really concerned me. The penalties, obviously, those are, you got to look at the tape on that, and there are adjustments he could make with those penalties if that's how the game's going to get called, or just to not even risk it in the first place. It's the playoffs, and they have a good power play, even though they didn't score on it last game. There was one other good play that I there were some positives I wanted to talk about too, though. Like that JVR breakaway was set up by a long distance pass by Lohrei. He has good vision, and I know Grzelcyk is a pretty good transition player as well. But what I noticed about Grzelcyk in the first two games was that he was having a harder time transitioning when he was under pressure, and when, like, because he's small and he was turning pucks over on the breakout. And Lohrei didn't seem to be having the same issues. So he made a good pass. We know he can do that. And he's not going to get bumped off the puck as much as Grzelcyk is.
Yeah, and you know, another area of the transition game, Montgomery talks a lot about defensemen taking center ice in transition. What he means is driving through the middle when that's what's open. And Lohrei did that a couple times too, where he was the one kind of leading the rush up the middle and either taking the zone entry or dishing over to the wing for someone to enter. So I would keep him in as well. Obviously, he does have to clean up those mistakes. You know, that pinch, it might not have been a bad, like, he actually got to the puck first, but then he loses the battle. So it's like, if you're going to pinch, great, you know, hey, he got there, but then, like, you got to be stronger and keep the puck moving forward, not lose it, have it turn back around on you. So, you know, I can't say I'm going to give him like a super long leash and he's in the rest of the series. You know, if game 4 comes and he makes those mistakes again or takes a couple more penalties, like, then he might be out game 5. But there was enough positives in game 3 that I would keep him in and show him the mistakes, talk to him about it.
Oh yeah.
Hope he cleans it up, and if he does, then he stays in.
He's going to watch a lot of film today, I think.
What do you guys say to fans who would like to see Lohrei stay in the lineup and Grzelcyk comes in lieu of Shattenkirk? Now, I think they like the veteran presence, right? The stability, but there could be people that want both Lohrei and Grzelcyk in the lineup. What would you say to that?
I'm not super opposed to it, but I worry a little bit how that left side now holds up if it's, you know, Lohrei and Grzelcyk as the other two left shot defenders with Lindholm. Because presumably in that scenario, it's Wotherspoon flipping to his offside. He's the one who's played his offside the most of those left shots. So I'd be a little bit worried about that. With Shattenkirk, like I get it. Obviously, that they're clearly limiting his minutes 5-on-5.
Yeah, he only had 10 minutes.
Yeah,
total.
Way down. And his power play unit is right now not the one that's been clicking this series. It's been the other unit with McAvoy, Marchand, DeBrusque, Coyle, and Geeky. So
not sure I'd put that on Shattenkirk though, like that.
No, I don't. And to be clear, like I still think Shattenkirk's doing some good things. I still think in the offensive zone, to me, like he is the Bruins' best defenseman at getting pucks through. And taking those quick, tippable shots that produce rebounds, like that is still an asset. And it looks so simple that I think it gets underappreciated sometimes, because it's like, well, if it was that simple, then every Bruins defenseman would be doing it, and not all of them are. So there are things he still deserves credit for. And if you can limit him because other defensemen are playing well enough, like I absolutely have no issue with Shattenkirk being the sixth defenseman.
Were either of you guys at all surprised that Lohrei came in for game 3? Were either of you like, I mean, I know Brian, you wanted him. Scott, you thought that it might have been a little bit too risky. Were you surprised that he made the extra change at D when we thought maybe he was just going to go Wotherspoon in for the injured player Peak to decide to go to Lohrei as well?
I was a little bit, only because like, listen, I don't think Grzelcyk played very well in game 2, but I also didn't really think Grzelcyk had done anything that cost you. I mean, he hadn't been on the ice for a goal against. Like, the Leafs hadn't scored with Grzelcyk on the ice. So you can't sit here and be like, oh, he was such a liability. And it's like, well, I don't know. Every other defenseman was on the ice for goals against, and he wasn't. That said, like you could see where areas where he was struggling. And in Toronto, you can't hide him as much. So I get that. So I guess I was a little surprised, but like not shocked.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. And again, it's never been anything against Grzelcyk. It's just that I don't think the playoffs is a time to necessarily be conservative. And I just think that Lohrei brings an element to that back end that helps your 5-on-5 offense. And it can't be overstated that your offense starts from your back end. And they look stagnant 5-on-5, even at parts of game 1. So yes, to your point, Bridget, I was expecting obviously Wotherspoon in for Peak, the 1-for-1. Was I expecting the second personnel change back there? No, I wasn't expecting it because I've grown accustomed to wanting certain personnel decisions to be made on the Bruins, and then them not agreeing with me or fans not agreeing with me. But I've always liked Lohrei's upside, and I thought that was a good time. Now my question in response to you guys is, do you think it's a coincidence that game 3 playing with Mason Lohrei was Charlie McAvoy's best game of the series? And I've said all along, I think there's a level of complacency and comfortability when McAvoy plays with Grzelcyk or even Lindholm for that matter. But now playing with Lindholm sometimes is difficult because you have two stallions that are together, and it's you kind of defer to the other person at times. And then with Grzelcyk, I just think, like I said, complacency and comfortability with McAvoy. Playing with a rookie in Lohrei, you have to be that veteran. You have to be on your toes and be accountable. And I just think there's something to that.
Yeah, I thought McAvoy was good. I wouldn't go so far as to say like it was a great game for him. Still felt like there were times where I wanted to maybe see a little more, but I definitely don't have any issue with the way he played. And maybe being with Lohrei did help him. I think that helps everyone on the ice kind of get forward more. McAvoy's physical. I think he got credited with 7 hits too. And again, even adjusting for Toronto inflation, fine. If you want to call it 5 or 6, then great. Plays over 25 minutes. So, I thought really solid, 5 shots on goal. That's actually more than I thought, honestly. Like, I knew he was involved offensively at times. I didn't I actually didn't realize he landed 5 on goal, so that's encouraging as well.
Yeah, I thought. Yeah, I want to say it was Charlie McAvoy's best game as a Bruin, but I think saying he had a good game is a little light. I think he definitely played a better game than a good game. Again, uh, subjective, but that's just what I saw. A question for you guys. This is a concern I've had with the Bruins, and I think it's a concern for every NHL team. But with the Bruins in particular, I noticed not so much last night, but game 2 for sure, game 1, and a lot of times in the regular season. What can the Bruins do better when they are playing in the period or periods where they have a long change? It depends on what arena you're in, depends on where your bench is configured, but all teams probably struggle with having a long change from the defensive zone because you get stuck out there, you can't change as easily. What can the Bruins do when they're defending furthest away from their bench to avoid shifts where you're getting trapped in your D zone?
Good question. I feel like at times they need someone to make an aggressive defensive play, like really come on and attack someone, because I do think, I think they're usually pretty aggressive, like on retrievals and trying to get the puck out quick. But then it feels like sometimes when they don't do that and the other team actually gets set up, they sag back a little bit and turn it and go into like protect the house mode, where it's like, all right, you have the puck, you're set up in the O zone. We're just not going to give you grade A chances. And I do think part of that's just their strategy. Like, I think that's just how they play, but that is like what can lead to those longer shifts where the opponent just keeps cycling around. And it's like, eventually, if you don't kill the play at some point, like, you're gonna get tired. I don't care how packed in you are, or not really chasing the play. Like, you're gonna get tired if the team has the puck in your zone for a minute 15. So maybe just like a little more aggressive in defensive zone coverage, and a little more willingness to come out and challenge that cycle rather than just kind of pack it in and just being worried about like that grade A area.
I want to switch to goaltending now, guys, because we got really far into this, and the main conversation that has been surrounding the game, every game so far, has been goaltending, and so we want to spend a little bit of time on it, obviously. And so we had WEI put up a poll. I'm guessing this was Scott that tweeted this.
I think it was Ken Laird, actually.
It was Ken. Okay,
me.
We'll give Ken credit. He said, who should be the number 1 star of the Bruins Game 3 win, Marchand or Swayman? And 63% said Swayman. Was Swayman the best player on the ice in Game 3?
Start to finish, he has to be, right? 60 minutes he's on the ice. But
I actually think it was Marchand. I actually, look, listen, they were both great. They're clearly the top 2 stars. I actually think this was more Marchand, number 1 star, but that's not to detract from Swayman, who was great.
Yeah, it really is like a pick 'em. I mean, the only reason I would give it to Swayman is simply for the fact that he's out there the entire game and can't take a shift off, whereas Marchand and any other skater can afford to take a couple of shifts off, perhaps. So that's the only reason I would go Swayman. But again, it's a pick 'em. And Bridget, there was I believe you did this poll.
Yes. So I put up another poll after the game just because I wanted to see if people were still rotation, or we're trying to gauge who's sticking with the rotation bandwagon, or who just has seen so much good from Swayman that they're like, okay, no, Swayman. So I said, if you were making the choice, would you go with Swayman or Ullmark next game? 81% said Swayman. And that is way higher than what we saw earlier for Game 2, which was as like a 55-45 split, which was also pro Swayman, but 81% this time.
Well, I don't know if we want to do a drum roll for Scott to see where he lands. I mean, I'm not surprised. I obviously, despite my subtle sarcasm last episode, I am
Subtle.
I am.
Yeah, but Brian's with the 19% now. He's pro rotation. He got the tattoo and everything.
Yeah, he changed it to his profile picture for like 1 hour.
Which was that's because I didn't want to be a jinx because like the Stanley Cup is in it, and I didn't want to jinx him anyway.
Wait, I gotta find the picture and show you. But anyway,
Yeah.
keep talking while I do that.
But look, myself, Bridget, there it is. Yeah.
It's great work that I did on Photoshop.
Hilarious. And I was also I don't want to take credit for it. I don't want people to see anything I did that. So I that's also why I changed it
No,
back.
but just if anyone wants it, I will email you it, and you can get it tattooed on you if you'd like. It is very crudely photoshopped. The Stanley Cup is the size of each player.
By the way, seeing that made me think, like, if they actually do win the cup, like those two,
that would be hilarious.
They will do something corny with, like, they'll do like a double hug of the cup or something, like,
yeah, yep.
And like everyone will be celebrating, so no one will care. But then, like a week later, we'll be like, that was kind of corny.
That's kind of just how they are, especially Swayman. To get back on track.
Yeah. So my sarcasm aside, last episode, I've always said, and I still am, like I it's game to game for me. I've never wanted a strict rotation. Neither has Bridget. That doesn't mean we don't want both goalies. It's just a matter of like just look at each game, go with feel and whatnot. But Scott, heading into game 4, are you sticking to your guns? Do you want them to go back to Allmark with the strict rotation? Because you said no matter what, you want them to go 4 games at least with the rotation. So drum roll, please.
Hold on. I did not say that no matter what. I said rotate until one of them gives you a reason not to. Jim Montgomery was the one who
you were going to die on this hill for game 2. You were going to die on this hill. And that's why we were yelling at you.
What are you talking? Yeah, I'm pro rotation, and I didn't have any reason not to be at that time.
And now you do?
No, I don't.
So you're
Linus Ullmark was good in game 2. What?
So you go in Ullmark game 4?
Sure. Now,
no, I need a yes or a no.
Yes, if it were up to me, I would keep rotating.
I respect it.
That said,
I respect.
I can't sit here and say like I feel super strongly. I mean, listen. At some point, even the people like me, you can't ignore how dominant Swayman has been against Toronto all season. He's now 5-0 with a. Hold on, I wrote it up. What was it? A 957 save percentage. 957. 5-0 on the season. And so a couple normally I would make the point of. I think part of the reason Swayman looks so good is that he's on his regular rest. And I do think that helps. I think keeping goalies fresh helps. So, would Swayman have been as good last night if it was his 3rd straight start and not 2nd in 3 games? I don't know. Maybe. But I think it's a factor worth considering. That is somewhat negated by the fact that you have 2 days before game 4 on Saturday. And then 2 more days in between 4 and 5 when it comes back to the Garden on Tuesday. So I would not care. I would not put up any sort of fight. I would not call it a mistake if they go to Swayman game 4. I don't see how anyone could possibly consider it that a mistake or really be strongly opposed to it. But I've been pro rotation long enough, and like I said, didn't think Ullmark played poorly at all in game 2. So I'll stick to my guns for now. I think I'm going to be wrong, by the way, because I do think they're probably going to just stick with Swayman at this point.
Really? Because I for some reason, I have a gut feeling that's telling me they're going to go back to Ullmark, even though I don't think they should. Well, something is telling me that is what they're still going to do.
They have no second guesses. This is their
Well, I think they already told Ullmark he's going in. Not that you can't just tell him no, but I feel like they probably already told them this is the plan, and then they might go off of it. They can. I mean, he's a professional. He should be able to handle being told, actually, no, we're going back to Swayman. Like you said, the rest makes it easier to, it gives you a little bit of extra, like, okay, he's, he got the rest. We can't really say like he's going to be tired. But I will say, I think that the reason why it seemed like rotation was the stronger option going in was because both goalies, like, we hadn't seen this level from Swayman, right? Like, Swayman didn't just come in and play like good. He came in and he has played the best hockey we've ever seen him play. So we're kind of under this circumstance where it's like, all right, he actually stole it. And you got to give him a whole lot of credit for that. But I think it's still surprising that he came out. What?
I don't know if I'd say stole either win. Like,
he's still no.
I think the Bruins were better in both games.
No. He's as in like he's stealing the starting job.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
I think that the reason why it was hard to predict was because Swayman had a little bit of a rougher end of the year, and then all of a sudden you watch how he's playing, and you're like, I wasn't expecting this good, right? We know he can be really good, but this seems like a new level.
Look, I don't know about you guys, Bridget, and I don't know about you, but entering the playoffs, the week before the playoffs began, I wasn't sitting here being like, Swayman's the guy every single, like it had to do with the fact of who they ended up drawing in the first round, how that goalie matched up against them all year, and how he played in game one. This was never an anti-Allmark thing. This was a matter of just looking at, matchup and analytics and whatnot. And also look, part of, as much as, so Scott kept saying he really wanted to see the goalie rotation and what that looked like. You know what we haven't seen ever? We've never seen Swayman get a playoff series start to finish. And this dates back to the Tuukka Rask days when Tuukka Rask was playing hurt and Swayman was playing well as a rookie against the Islanders. We kind of want to see it then. And then I know people will say, well, they're not used to carrying a load, and I get all that. So my question for those people is, last couple days ago, the first poll we put up after game one, who should get game two, Allmark or Swayman? 45% of people said to go to Allmark. After game three, people are now it's 18%. So I want to know from those 27% of people that switched their vote now. My question to you guys, and this is a serious question. After game one, you wanted to go with the rotation because it's what the goalies are used to, and you're not sure how they would do on consecutive starts. My question to all of you now is that still not a concern for you? Like, all of a sudden you're okay with consecutive starts? It's either you are or you aren't. And I genuinely don't know what people's answers to that are,
Well, I think that I can kind of guess because
well, you don't have to guess. I can tell you because I'm one of those people.
True, he is one of those people.
I already said it. The 2 days off between games matters. Like, that's different.
And also,
every other
night. If you're saying you want him in for game 4, that doesn't necessarily mean you want him in for the rest of the series. So like you could think like, okay, get him rest after that as well if he needs it. But I want to read the quote from Swayman after the game that has to do with all this. He said, I think for me personally, I don't want rest. I just want to keep playing. No matter when I get the call, whether it's back-to-back or every other game, I want to make sure my body is ready and I'm ready to perform at my best. So, I mean, it's obvious that he thinks that he can go. And any goalie will feel that way, but he deserves the start. And in my mind, he gives you the better chance to win. And that's nothing against Allmark. It's not that Allmark's playing bad, but for whatever reason, Toronto just cannot seem to crack him. And I think he's in their head a little bit. And I also think that this is something you brought up the other day, Brian, that goalies in every single situation play pucks differently than the other. Mm-hmm. And like Swayman is playing pucks, coming out of his net to play pucks differently. Swayman is controlling rebounds differently. Like, say there was a time during Allmark's start where he just didn't cover up one puck and he made a great save on it, but maybe Swayman would have controlled it differently, ends up somewhere else. You know what I mean? Like, every single aspect of the game is changed by the way the goalie either covers the puck, holds the puck, gives up a rebound, plays the puck. Like, there's so many other things that go into it just besides the saves that we would never be able to judge what the game would even look like in those situations. Like, sometimes Swayman helps the breakout. Sometimes like there's these other things that go into it, not just the saves.
I mean, to push back, like, was that an issue with Allmark in game 2, though?
I'm
I mean,
saying-
I actually think Allmark's a better puck handler than Swayman usually.
So
I'm talking about like judgment of.
Can I just
like,
say real quick, Bridget, to your point, and Scott, like here's why these arguments are, especially like online. It's not. After game 2, people were saying Allmark was the best player. He's not the reason they lost. Both of those things were true. And yes, he might be equal as good as Swayman at certain attributes like puck placement, playing the puck and whatnot. But literally, you can't look at game 2 and say, would Swayman have done any better on those shots? Because like it's a different game literally would have played out. And people will say, well, Swayman had so much better defense in front of him in game 1. And it's like, okay, fine. But like maybe there's a reason, like who knows? There could be a reason for that none of us can even explain. It could just be subconscious. It could be luck. Whatever the case may be, the second that you decide to start a different goalie, it changes. Like you can't compare it to the other guy because it's the universe. It would have been a different game. Like seriously, I don't know how else to explain it. So people trying to compare, goalie for goalie, save for save analytics and comparisons, it doesn't work that way. It just doesn't. Like it's the butterfly effect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and not like I said, not that I think Allmark's bad in any of those ways. Like literally, just talking about guys read things differently. It bounces off them a different direction. Like literally, the way the puck bounces or the way that pucks are handled is. It's just one of those things where, like Brian said, it's a butterfly effect. It's unknown what those bounces would have looked like the other way. Like it's a completely different game. Like it's not, we would have watched in a parallel universe, we would have watched a very different game too if it had been Swayman, because Matthews wouldn't have, rang posts all over the place and whatnot. But
it's not really worth getting. I don't really think I agree with that, but
which part?
That's okay. We don't agree with you on some of the stuff.
You think it would have been the same shots? The Austin Matthews breakaway happens the way it did? It's a different game.
I think for 2 years the Bruins have, by and large, played about the same way in front of both goalies. Like
that's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I see, but Scott, that's not what we're. It's you're trying to make it black and white. That's not what we're saying. It's a different. It's just a different. Like maybe what it really is dumb because Bridget can't say what she just said, and then you come back with the whole they've done it for 2 years. That's just an unfair. It's an unfair response to what she's saying.
I think maybe Scott maybe I'm not explaining it very well, or maybe Scott's not understanding it. But
no, I just
simply put, the Austin Matthews breakaway goal. No goalie on planet Earth is saving that shot. But like that exact play doesn't happen because maybe he gets a breakaway at a different part in the game, some other way somehow, but not in that moment. It's because again, it's just it's a different game.
I don't get. Yeah, I legitimately don't get how this works. Like,
so
Charlie McAvoy's going to play better defense if it's Swayman back there. Like
that's not what we're saying.
Not what we're saying. We're just saying it's a different game. I don't know how else to say it, Scott.
From literally
players make everything happen.
Yeah, we don't have to go. We don't have to go further.
Yeah, it could be as simple as the puck drops and Toronto gains the line and Swayman covers it, and it's like there's a whistle that doesn't happen.
I feel like I'm like Zach Galifianakis in the Hangover with like all these like numbers like swirling around me, trying to figure out what you guys are getting.
The simplest way to describe it is the butterfly effect. Like everybody knows what the butterfly effect is. That's all we're saying. Butterfly effect. Done.
Yeah.
Leave it at that. But regardless, what do you say?
I said got it.
Okay. Regardless of who plays in net, if the Bruins played the way that they played throughout the majority of Game 3, I think they should have the upper hand in this series regardless. Because what we all can agree on is both goalies have played phenomenal when they've been in net. So goaltending, no matter who starts, goaltending is not it's not an issue for this Bruins team, especially over Toronto. I mean, that Samsonov goal that Frederick scored, I mean, that's a goal that I don't see Allmark or Swayman giving up. So that's a strength, obviously. Like we all agree that the goaltending, both goalies are capable of winning. So
I saw this hashtag trending after the game. Hashtag let Sway play.
Let Sway play.
Yep, let Sway play. It rhymes, so.
Yeah. Okay, so we're running a little bit late here, guys. Any final takeaways from the game? I know a lot happened. I mean, I'm not sure if we've neglected anything major.
Nylander still didn't play.
Yes, good point. So, and it seems there might be some more clarity on that. Looks like it may have been a head injury, not a back injury. Either way, it's probably something that Toronto's not trying to have a rash decision on. They're trying to take their time with him. So their season's kind of in the balance here. If they lose another game, you don't want to go down 3-1 to Boston. So, but you also, if he is battling concussion symptoms, you can't just rush a guy like that into the lineup. So
no, and technically, there's a protocol you have to clear. Like there's physical outside forces that stop you from putting a guy in that's not ready. That's dealing with concussion symptoms.
Regardless of what it is worth knowing, like, he took line rushes at morning skate on Wednesday. Now, maybe that's just because Austin Matthews didn't, so there was a spot to plug in an extra forward anyways. Matthews took the option and didn't skate in the morning. But, I mean, it does seem like Nylander's getting close. Like, you're not on the ice and going through drills if you're still, like, 5 steps away. Like, that's usually getting pretty close to the last step. So we'll see. You know, when the Leafs writers like tweeted out that he was taking line rushes, I thought like, oh, okay, he's probably back. And then he hangs around after with the rest of the scratches, and he's out again. So who knows? Like, again, it seems to me like he would be back for Saturday, but you know, I think we all kind of thought he was getting close already. So that's, you know, very interesting. Like, obviously,
yeah.
I think after game 2, you'd say like, oh, okay, well, the Leafs have been the better 5-on-5 team, so you know, maybe they don't really need him just yet. Obviously, they'd always want him, but then you get a game like game 3 where the Bruins are now suddenly the better 5-on-5 team, and you know, now you're looking at like, okay, the Leafs could really use them.
Any chance the Bruins play Forbort Saturday?
I don't think so, because I think they keep the same lineup after that game. Like as we already said, like I would.
They said he wasn't available for game 3, but he did go on the trip. That's why I say that.
Yeah. But that can also be, you know, they're going to have a full team practice on Friday, so I'm sure you want him there for that.
Yeah.
So even if, again, it's the playoffs, so they're not going to tell us anything, but like even if the plan was he's not playing either of these games, you'd still want him on that trip, especially for that Friday practice.
Yeah, and he's technically listed as day-to-day. It's not like a healthy scratch, they say. So
yeah,
he's not 100% yet, I guess. But just wondering, like, if there was part of Lohrei's game they really didn't like, or part of someone's game that they really didn't like say they didn't like Shattenkirk's game, like we saw them limit his minutes to just about 10 minutes. I don't know if they're willing to go that far and put someone else in for him, but just figured I'd throw it out there because that's just one guy that's been injured, because we were talking about Nylander, another guy that's been injured for the Bruins, that, you know, who knows? Maybe we'll see him at some point in this series. Maybe we won't. We don't know what's going to happen with Nylander either. And I don't know if Toronto, like, it seems like they haven't been able to find their full A game without Nylander.
Yeah, and I think as far as Forbort goes, like, I just don't think you don't want to throw a guy into the fire right now unnecessarily. Everybody on that Bruins back end has, you know, they've got their timing down right now, their gap controls, they're figuring out against these Maple Leafs forward. So to throw a guy in there after, how long has he been out for? A couple months?
Since March 2nd, I think. It was very early in March.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so not as long as I thought, but yeah, and you know what, he got a conditioning stint in Providence, so it's not like he hasn't seen game action. But I think I don't know. I would just treat him as a rotational defenseman right now, like, or a depth defenseman. If somebody gets hurt, if it's necessary, yes, but I wouldn't just throw him in the middle of a series to get that. This is the time to get a guy comfortable, get a guy reps. Like, unless they need him to go in, they shouldn't put him in. Nylander, yeah. I mean, I I think it's 100-point score just about. So that affects Toronto's team. I will say, if I'm a Maple Leafs fan, you're concerned about when he does go back into the lineup. Is he playing a little bit more timid to, with trepidation about getting hurt again or whatnot? Is he not his full self, right? So we'll see if he gets back into the lineup, if he's William Nylander of midseason form, or because he was struggling the last month of the season too. So combine that with being injured, in particular, if it's a head injury, it might take him a little bit to get his feet wet too. So time will tell.
My last thought is just that the officiating needs to be better.
Well,
I'm not saying for one side or the other, I just think they screwed up the whole game. I just think that they missed a ton, and then their standard changed throughout the game, and that's just really what you don't want to see in the playoffs. If you're gonna let stuff go, you just gotta let it go. I don't know. It felt like they missed some pretty obvious stuff too. The high stick on McAvoy, which was right in front of everyone's face. And playoff standards, you have to be consistent.
I think we decided as a podcast last year or the year before to just try to look the other way in officiating and expect nothing less than horrendous officiating for the sake of our blood pressure. I mean,
that's why I saved it to the end. But of all of my notes, we got to everything else, and I was I wanted to mention that the officiating was very frustrating. So
and to tie it back to Sheldon Keefe, it's really rich to be complaining about the officiating in a game where you got 5 power plays. I don't know, maybe worry about getting your power play going. You got a ton of chances, dude. Okay, maybe they missed another 1 or 2 somewhere. To British point, they clearly missed a couple obvious ones on Toronto. So, I get it. It's, it's that time of year. You work the refs. You whine and moan and whatever. But
I don't know if that works the refs the same way that I feel like that works against you, honestly.
Worked for Craig Berube in the Stanley Cup Finals.
Yeah, it did. But this one sounded like there's something about this comment was different than just being the refs missed stuff. It was you discredited everything you were saying when you said Marchand gets calls.
Yeah, I don't think he was worried about discrediting himself. I think
clearly not.
I think he had different goals in mind than to compliment Brad Marchand.
Well, if his goal was to anger his own fan base, he did that. So I saw Sportsnet put up the quote, and every comment underneath it was maybe score on the power play, maybe score on the power play. Oh, did you see the one that Domi hit Swayman? It was all negative.
Sportsnet in Canada, they will do anything they can to get headlines. There's a video of Marchand skating back to the bench after the open net goal, and they're trying to lip read that Marchand is skating by the Maple Leafs bench saying it's
Bruins
over in
5.
Saying it's over in 5. Meanwhile, there's 35 seconds left on the game clock, and he's talking to his own bench saying there's still 35. So as in keep it going. Maybe he did say it's over in 5, but the point is Toronto media just takes everything they can.
I'm pretty sure that they posted it and took it down.
Yeah, I was gonna say they finally deleted it after getting thousands of engagements and setting that narrative on fire. I will say, because I don't think we mentioned it, but since we're talking about coaches complaining, I didn't like Montgomery complaining about the schedule before the game. If anyone missed this, he said in his morning skate press conference on Wednesday that he was asked, so it's not like he totally brought up out of the blue, but he was asked, do you like the 2 games between games 3 and 4? And he said, no, I would rather us be Thursday, Saturday up here. We're spending more time in Toronto than the Leafs are spending in Boston, and we're the home team. And you could tell when he first answered, he gave a short answer that was just no, I would have preferred Thursday, Saturday. And then he pauses, and it's if he just ended it there, fine. But then he goes on the other thing about spending time in the city, and I was, it didn't matter. His team went out and won, but I'm kind of weak. Listen, everyone knows why the schedule is like this. It's because of TV. It's because you're the marquee series.
Yeah, so, and the draft, the NFL draft, you don't want to put up your game against the NFL draft tonight.
Right. ESPN has this game. They also have the NFL draft, so of course they're gonna put you on Wednesday. So you're not going head to head with the draft. And then you're gonna have to wait till Saturday because you're gonna get Hockey Night in Canada. So, like
Hey,
like you're one of the marquee teams. So the TV networks are gonna put you in the prime spots. Like that, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, maybe they get that extra day off. They go do something fun, like Scott was referring to back when they won the cup and they took a trip to Lake Placid. Like maybe they do something fun. Who knows? Maybe they just sleep the whole day. I'm fine with that. That would work for me.
Well, they got to have something planned because they don't have any sort of skater practice Thursday. They have, so obviously I'm not in Toronto, but they have their media availability at the team hotel at 11 and then nothing on the schedule after that. So like I can tell you right now, like they're not just sitting in the hotel all day. So that they got to have something planned.
By the way, we're recording after 11. I haven't seen a single thing come out of that press conference. So
there is a level of so Montgomery complaining about it. You guys just hit it all. That said, there are some differences in Toronto and Boston. In Boston, maybe 1 in 10 people will recognize Austin Matthews on the street. In Toronto, 11 out of 10 people are recognizing Parker Wotherspoon on the street. So there's definitely a level of like having to kind of deal with that for an extra day, but who cares? They got to deal with that regardless.
I don't know. I saw Pasternak walking down the street in Montreal. Not a single person stopped him.
Oh, really?
He was just walking down the street. Yeah.
Well, I'm not saying that people would stop him, but you definitely have people like whispering, probably taking pictures and whatnot. So
I didn't see any of that.
Again, it's pointless to complain about it. I mean, I've
11 out of 10 though. Wow, that's
yeah, something like that. Yeah, I think if my math is correct. Yeah.
I don't know how that would work. Yeah, I don't know, but yeah,
a couple mares. There could be a few mares in the room,
I thought you were thinking maybe some dogs or something.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
The dog just absolutely losing his mind over Jesper Boquist.
He's like, that's my favorite plant.
It's like a little chihuahua. Okay. Anything else, guys? We good?
All good.
No.
All right. Saturday night. So an extra day in between here. Hope you all have a wonderful Thursday, Friday. Enjoy Saturday, the game. And I guess Sunday and Monday. Sunday skate will drop, and then Monday we'll do an episode.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank
you all. Thank you all for listening. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you soon. Hey guys, thanks for watching the Skate Podcast. If you want to see more of our videos, visit our playlist.
Not in front of a screen? You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Don't forget to follow us on social media. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment.